What is going on, everybody? My name is Sam. Let's talk about ScreenFlow. So for those of you that don't know what ScreenFlow is, it is essentially a Mac screen recording application with a built-in editor. And that is pretty much the simple version of it. So Telestream, they are the developers of ScreenFlow. They released version 7 earlier in the month of August. And since I've been a long-time ScreenFlow user, I figured I would upgrade and give it a shot. And with that being said, I thought I would let you all know my first impressions of it and whether or not it is worth the upgrade, or if you are considering buying ScreenFlow, whether it is worth the price tag. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Now, because this is a new version of an application, the changelog is super duper long. If you want to read every single change, every single fix, every single improvement that this new application has to offer over the past versions of ScreenFlow, I will leave a link to it in the description below. With that being said, I'm going to highlight my favorite features of this application right now. All right, so MP4 Improvements. Now, if you have used ScreenFlow before, or if you're thinking about getting it, editing an MP4 file in the past has always been kind of a sluggish process. Now they have improved on that. Now editing and exporting MP4 files should be heavily improved compared to past versions of ScreenFlow. Text animations are now in the built-in editor. I know it sounds like a very minor addition to some because text animations are usually typical in your run-of-the-mill video editor. However, this video editor did not necessarily have text animations built in. Now it does. So if you want to get some basic text animations in there before you export it, if you don't want to do the text animations later and you just want to get them done within ScreenFlow's editor, this is a great thing to have. One of my favorite things about this new update is the global media library. If you are a video creator like myself that has a bunch of templates that you reuse for multiple videos, I'm sure you probably get sick and tired of re-importing the file from a folder and you don't really know where the folder went, so you have to go searching for that folder. This totally eliminates that. Now what you can do is you can import those videos that you reuse, and every time you reopen the application, it will be there. It is just 2 clicks away, which is fantastic. If you are somebody that is in a rush, there are now auto export options. When you go to File Export, you should see 3 new options there, and judging from what the different settings are for each option, I think they're actually pretty decent. And if you are somebody that needs to get a screen recording out super fast and you have no time to manually tweak anything, these are great for that. So this next feature doesn't necessarily pertain to me, but there is now touch bar support. If you have a newer MacBook Pro, I have the older one, so I don't have the OLED strip. The application now supports that. So you can now access a bunch of different shortcuts on the OLED touch bar that correspond with the application. This feature might not sound all that interesting, but I figured I should mention it anyway. They have taken away the macOS Autosave functionality, and from what they have written in their changelog, ScreenFlow has their own autosave functionality, and apparently when the macOS one and the ScreenFlow one are working at the same time, it corrupts files. So they just got rid of the macOS one, and now they're just using their own. So for this next feature, I'm going to read it off of my list because I want to make sure I'm getting it right. Intel QuickSync Hardware Accelerated Encoding. So essentially what this does, and I'm going to read this word for word from the changelog, according to Telestream, ScreenFlow 7 can now take advantage of hardware accelerated encoding. This is great for videos where the highest possible quality is not the main goal, and you would like the export process to have a minimal impact on system resources. So essentially, if you have a lower end computer and you want to just export something without even worrying about having the highest possible quality of video, this is a nice thing to have. So in case you didn't know, YouTube has a 60 FPS option. They've actually had it for a long time now. And one thing that ScreenFlow has done in the past, you can actually export 60 FPS screen recordings. However, when you are viewing your recordings back in the built-in editor, you are actually reviewing them in 30 FPS. Well, that is now gone. You can now look at your recordings in 60 frames per second. So now you can get a more accurate representation as to what your video will look like upon export. For those of you that really like customizing your editing workflow, there are now user-defined shortcut keys. You can access this by going into the settings of ScreenFlow 7, and you can allocate different keys to do particular things, like if you want to split a clip, if you want to add an effect, all that sort of stuff. You can now customize all of that, and it can make your editing workflow faster if you are that kind of a person. Another great thing that ScreenFlow now does, it now calculates your export file size. Originally, it never did this. You actually sort of had to play a guessing game as to how big your file was going to be. Now when you click File Export, it should give you an estimated file size as to how big your file will be once it is finished exporting. If you are a Spanish speaker and Spanish is your native language and you prefer to work in applications that cater to your native language, Spanish system localization is now supported in ScreenFlow 7. And finally, I'm saving this one for last. This must have been a requested feature from a bunch of ScreenFlow fans, but there is now a dark user interface. I don't know exactly why ScreenFlow put the dark user interface in. All I do know is that it looks super slick and it's much easier on the eyes, especially if you're editing at night. Of course, if the lighter theme, the original light theme, was your favorite, you can go back into the settings and change it back to the light theme. Okay, so those are my favorite features of ScreenFlow 7. Here are my least favorite parts of ScreenFlow 7. Okay, so my two least favorite things about ScreenFlow 7, I'm gonna start with my minor least favorite thing. The app icon, don't really dig it. It's not necessarily my style, and it looks like it's from 10 years ago. It gives off the wrong impression, and it doesn't really look like, the icon doesn't look like you're about to open an application that was built in 2017. It looks like an application from 2007, judging by the icon design. But that's a very minor thing. I don't think ScreenFlow should change it by any means. If it's your style, great. It's just something that I don't find very appealing. My second and final con, the price tag. It was a little bit more expensive to upgrade than in past versions, and it cost $30 more than the past two versions to my knowledge. Originally, ScreenFlow 5 and ScreenFlow 6 up front were $100. This one, ScreenFlow 7, is now $130. So if you are a first-time investor and you are looking into buying ScreenFlow 7, be prepared to shell out quite a bit of money. But again, what you have to keep in mind is this is a screen recording application and it is an editor all combined into one. So in theory, you're actually getting quite a lot in a very small package. All right, so my overall thoughts of ScreenFlow 7, it is still the same ScreenFlow I have come to know and love over the last several years. It works beautifully, it's buttery smooth, it's very user-friendly, and if you are somebody that is really looking into becoming a professional screen recorder, I know that sounds kind of dorky, but if you are trying to create professional looking screen recordings, this is definitely the application for you. I definitely do think it is worth the upgrade fee, and I definitely do think it is worth the price. Even if it looks quite high, I still think it is quite worth it. Okay, now it is your turn. Do you use a screen recording application? And if so, which one is it and how do you like it? Please leave a comment below. I really want to hear your thoughts. All right, everybody, that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.